The don'ts of visiting New Orleans. So I have lived in New Orleans for a little over 3 years, and more specifically, I live in the French Quarter. So who better to watch this video than me? This is from WoltersWorld.com. Let's go ahead and hear what he believes are the biggest don'ts of visiting the Crescent City.
Travelers, Mark here with Wolters World. Today we're in New Orleans, Louisiana for the don'ts of visiting New Orleans. And no, it's not just Mardi Gras here. You can enjoy New Orleans almost all year round.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mardi Gras is fun for sure. Mardi Gras is so different in New Orleans. Before I moved to New Orleans, I was living in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is a big Mardi Gras city as well. There, Mardi Gras is one day. At the most, it's the weekend before and Mardi Gras day. In New Orleans, Mardi Gras is like a month and a half. Every day there's a parade. Every weekend there's a parade. Every weekend there's a ball. The most low-key day, arguably, is Mardi Gras. Like the weekend before all of that, by the time you get to Mardi Gras, people are pretty tired in New Orleans. It is definitely something to behold, but you can definitely get the most out of New Orleans if you go outside of Mardi Gras.
So what we're going to do is talk about those don'ts today. And the first don't I have for you for when you come to New Orleans is know that you don't call it Nolens, you don't call it New Orleans, it's New Orleans.
It's controversial yet brave. So I've always called it New Orleans my whole life. Now there's an avenue like 3 blocks from where I live. 100% of people call it Orleans Avenue. But if you say New Orleans, it gets kind of controversial, right? You're kind of split. But no one's split on Orleans Avenue. But you throw a new in front of it, and all of a sudden it's New Orleans, it's New Orleans, it's all kind of stuff. So I think it's somewhere in between New Orleans and New Orleans. I would go one of those two. It is not New Orleans. So it's either New Orleans or New Orleans is how I would call it.
New Orleans. Think of it this way. It's like new, and then or, like what you row a boat with, and then lens, like a camera lens. That's how you say it, New Orleans. And you put the emphasis on that or, okay? So that's what you need to know. That's the first step, okay? Know how to say the name right. New Orleans, all right? Now my second don't for you is don't worry too much about the liquor laws here. Look, you can walk around.
Yeah, there aren't any. There are 0 liquor laws. The only law I think there is, or the only thing that you'll get stopped for, is to have a glass bottle. That's it. Like if you have a can or a plastic cup, you're pretty much good. That's all there is to it. And then as far as like when you can drink, where you can drink, anywhere, everywhere, all the time. Like 3 for 1s, the happy hours. We have happy hours in the morning for a brunch, for our breakfast, and we have happy hours late at night for the all night. So I would not as far as liquor laws, keep it out of a glass container and you're good to go.
Around New Orleans with your alcohol, drinking your beer or your hurricane or your hand grenade or whatever you're drinking, you can walk around with that, okay? So don't worry about that. But what you need to know is don't walk around with glass bottles. You have to have it in a plastic cup. Otherwise, the coppers will tell you either throw it away, or if you don't, you could get a ticket. So you do want to be careful with that. But in general, don't worry too much about.
I think that's something that I didn't realize was exclusive to New Orleans, is how easy it is to get like to-go drinks and walk around with drinks. I went to Nashville or about a year and a half after I lived in New Orleans, and I tried to take like a plastic cup out of a bar, and they're like, no drinking on Broadway Street. Like I was thinking, what do you mean? Like I was just so used to this. I mean, in New Orleans, there's a lot of bars / restaurants have a section specifically for to-go drinks. Like it's either like a window, or it's a section of the bar you can pop in, get it to go drink it, and go. So that is a really nice thing, and that's not just the French Quarter. That's all throughout the city. You can load up an ice chest in a backpack, put a bunch of cans in there, and you can walk up and down the city having a good old time. So that part is very, very nice.
About the open liquor laws here, because you can walk around and enjoy your drink and go and check out the music and all the different places, okay? My next don't for you is, if you are going to be imbibing quite a bit, what you do when you're here is don't pee in public. Look, when you're walking.
Yeah, it's probably anywhere. Don't pee. Same thing. Like when you get to imbibing, general rules. Don't pee in public. Don't throw up in public. If you got to do something like that, take it to a private area. But like I said, this isn't really New Orleans. This is pretty much every place in the world.
Walking on Bourbon Street, you might smell like, well, not everyone follows your directions, Mark. No, not everyone does. But the thing is, if you pee in public, you can get a ticket as well. And I don't think you want to have an arrest record part of your, one of your souvenirs you want to get when you come here.
How is
so
that
don't
number
do
4?
that. The bars and stuff, they all have restrooms. Sometimes there might have been an attendant. I know in the guy.
I mean, how the hell is that a don't? The don'ts of visiting planet Earth. Don't pee in public.
This room at night on the weekends there have been. You might tip them $1 or something like that. But just know, don't pee in public. Another don't I have for you is don't bare your breast for beads. Look, but
False. You can do that. Happens. It is what it is. It's Mardi Gras specific. That is totally fine. You will not get in trouble for that. You peeing in public for sure. You flash. You go tits out for the boys. That you'll be okay. You'll be all right there. Get a couple beads. That is not going to get you a ticket or arrested. What it will get you is beads and moon pies.
the thing is realize that there's 2 things you want to know. One, if you do that, be ready to have them spread all over the internet, because I saw a few people doing that last night where they were doing it. There's like 7 other people taking pictures of them doing it, okay? So that's one thing. A second thing is if you bare your breasts outside the French Quarter, in the French Quarter, things are pretty laid back and they let things slide. But you get out of the French Quarter, that's called an act of lewdness. That's public nudity. You can be arrested for that, okay?
Yeah, you'll be all right. No one's going to do that here. Another side note, another bonus don't. If a bead hits the ground, it's done. Do not pick up the bead. That's not your bead. That's no one's bead. If you're at Mardi Gras or a parade or whatever, and a bead gets tossed, hits the ground, I would stay away from it. Camera, focus. There we go. I would stay away from it. It's not as cherished of a throw. You want to catch everything in the air. You don't want to get on the ground for anything.
So just know that, just don't bare your breast for beads. You can go buy them at Walgreens. And the thing is this all leads into my next don't is don't think New Orleans is just the French Quarter. I know when you watch the Mardi Gras stuff,
Yeah, true. I mean, New Orleans is obviously the French Quarter. It's so unique. Like every area of New Orleans is so different. And sometimes it's funny because whenever I leave my apartment, I'm like I said, I'm 2 blocks from the French Quarter. But if I start my walk to the west, I go through the Central Business District and then the Arts District, and then I can kind of loop back around to the French Quarter. And it's crazy how going through each area is so different. The houses look different, the architecture looks different, the colors are different, the smells are different, the restaurants and the menus and all of that is different. You go to Mid-City, totally different. You go uptown, completely different. Like New Orleans there is a little bit for everybody. The streets are like that. Like Bourbon Street is a street off of Royal Street. Royal Street here is where you'll find like a bunch of art galleries and a bunch of like the Hotel Monteleon and places like that. If you go on Royal Street, even during a big event like Mardi Gras or during a red dress run or something like that, if you go to Royal Street, you'll be amazed at how quiet and clean everything is compared to 20 feet over of Bourbon Street. You go to Bourbon Street and it's madness, out of control. You would think some of that would like bleed into the other streets, but every street, every area, every region does have their own kind of vibe, and they stick to it pretty hard.
just show the French Quarter. Hey, there's no parades here in the French Quarter during Mardi Gras, by the way. That's on St. Charles Avenue. That's over that way. Look, New Orleans has so much
It's not true either. There's parades stretch all throughout the French Quarter. They won't be like deep into the French Quarter, but if you're down there, especially on Canal Street, you'll catch either the beginning or the end of some parades. Even the parades that do go down St. Charles and do go uptown, most of the time they either start or end right off of the French Quarter or right outside of like Bourbon Street and some of these streets on Canal Street. So you do get some parade action during Mardi Gras in the quarter area.
to see. You like history? The National World War II Museum is here. Blocks of history. See the letters that moms and kids wrote back to their parents from the war, the battlements, their accoutrement, everything they had. It's a very moving, very huge.
Yeah, World War II Museum is amazing. I've been, and it is incredible. It's very moving. It's very impactful. It takes, I mean, you can't get through it in a day. I was there for like 4 or 5 hours, and I probably saw 40-50% of it. So if you're a history buff, yeah, the World War II Museum is incredible. I believe it's like the number 2 museum in the United States. So it's definitely worth it if you're a history buff, or if anyone in your family's a history buff. And this is kind of, and that's New Orleans in a nutshell. Like, there's so much to do. There's so much to see. You know, if you want to go let it rip in the French Quarter, by all means. But if you want to just go to City Park, go to Audubon Park, enjoy like a day at the park, that's one thing. We have the NOMA, the New Orleans Museum of Art. You can go look at Picasso's and all kind of paintings in there. You can go to a Broadway play at the Sanger. Obviously, the Smoothie King Center and the Caesar Superdome has concerts and all kinds of stuff happening there. So there's so much to do beyond getting loose as a goose. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Huge, I mean, huge museum, well worth checking out. Go out to NOMA, the New Orleans Museum of Art at City Park. It's got a fantastic collection.
Yeah,
awesome. You're like, well, I'm coming with my kids. Don't worry about that.
The aquarium, there's a zoo.
The Aquarium of the Americas, the Audubon Zoo. There's a ton of stuff here to see besides hitting the French Quarter. Now, don't get me wrong, walking around the French Quarter is so cool because you have this beautiful architecture you can see, and yes, it's good for a party and lots of great restaurants, but don't think New Orleans is just the French Quarter. It's a very tiny part of a very big city. And leading off to that one is don't stay in the French Quarter. I mean, don't get a hotel in the French Quarter because I'll be honest, this gets loud and rowdy pretty much every night of the year. We're here and it's actually, they're setting records for the coldest nights, okay?
So, I mean, if you stay in the French Quarter, it's just like this with anything, but if you stay in the French Quarter and you plan on being in the French Quarter, it definitely has its bonuses. Like, you're not going to, depending on your room and all that stuff, it's not like you're going to be kept up at night. I mean, some rooms for sure. If you have like a balcony overlooking Bourbon Street, yeah, you're going to be able to hear what's going on late into the night. But if you want to walk and feel safe and all of that, you do probably want to stay relatively close to whatever you plan on doing. If you plan on being on Bourbon Street and Royal Street and all of that, staying in the French Quarter versus staying 10, 15 minutes away is definitely worth it. Flip side, if you were going to spend a lot of your time in the Arts District or in the CBD, yeah, probably better to have a hotel over there. Getting an Uber is kind of tough in the French Quarter. I'm sure he'll talk about this, but the roads there are just awful, or here are awful. And driving, even for Ubers, are tough. And depending on where you are, you may have to walk, out of the French Quarter to get to a street that's a little easier for a pickup and drop off. And depending on how late it is or how loose as a goose you are, that can be kind of problematic. So, and you do not want to be walking by yourself late at night in dark streets or areas you're not familiar with. So, and if you're a tourist, I'm guessing you're not familiar with any of the streets. So, and that's another thing with New Orleans too, where if you stay in a populated area and you stay in a well lit, high traffic area, you'll be fine. But man, you can go 0 to 100, be on a highly populated area, go a street off, and all of a sudden you're wondering what you're doing in some back alley. Like, it does not take long for you to all of a sudden turn on a street that has no one on it, no lights, no traffic, no nothing. And then, that's where a lot of people get in bad situations. I hear all the time, I hear people in the French Quarter say, oh, we're going to walk to, a place that I know is like a 10, 15 minute walk through some dark areas or whatever. And I'm thinking in my head, like, just get an Uber, get an Uber. It's not that kind of city. So depending on where you're planning on spending the most of your time, it might behoove you to stay in the French Quarter.
And it's freezing. Like, I have my winter coat down there, but the bars are still packed. People are still out partying, having a good time, going crazy. And that loudness really makes it so it's not really enjoyable sometimes to stay in the French Quarter. So you might want to stay just a little bit outside. On the other side of Canal Street, go stay in the Central Business District or downtown or someplace that can really,
Canal's fine. Like, if you stay on Canal, like any of the hotels, like the JW, the Marriott, the Roosevelt, the Ritz, the Saint, any of those, even the Sheraton and some of those down on Canal, if you stay in any of those places, you're gonna be fine. Those are, well insulated, huge hotels. If you stay in like the Royal Sonesta on Bourbon Street, where, like I said, balconies are to Bourbon, that's where you'll start hearing some things. If you stay like deep into the Quarter, but if you stay on Canal, I doubt you hear much of anything.
Cut down the price a lot, but also cut down the noise and cut down some of the stuff like that. So just a heads up for that one. And the thing is when you come here, you might be driving in here, and I'm going to tell you right now, don't drive in New Orleans.
Do not.
Don't.
New Orleans is crazy. This is another thing I never really thought about, but when people visit New Orleans, specifically from like Salt Lake City or Arkansas or just other places, like places nowhere near here, and they come to New Orleans, they're always like, hey, where's the parking lot to blank restaurant? Hey, where do I park to do this? There really isn't an answer. New Orleans is a interestingly built city where there isn't like every restaurant doesn't have a parking lot. Every business doesn't have a parking lot. Most businesses don't have parking lots. Most restaurants don't have parking lots. So even if you do drive and find a parking space, more than likely, one, you'll have to pay for it. It'll be paid to park. And two, it'll be nowhere near where you're actually going. Throw into that, the streets are horrible, potholes, the infrastructure is not great. And then on top of that, you got one ways. So most streets are one ways. It's a very confusing system to drive in. So if I was given advice, which I guess I am, I would valet your car, and that's not, and then also if you're going to park on the street, the car could have a broken window or whatnot. So I would valet it with the hotel you're staying at. Even if you aren't staying at a hotel, most of the hotels here will let you valet your car. Like I think the casino here, Harrah's, you can valet your car overnight for like $40 or $50. And that sounds like a lot, but it is so worth it to get your car in a safe area, have it valeted, don't have to worry about it, pay for it, put it in there, walk around, get Ubers, whatever, and then get the car at the end of everything. And I would do that for anything. If you're coming to New Orleans for a concert and you're just going to the concert and leaving, valet it. Get it in a safe place. Get it into a paid garage. Don't just leave it on the street. Don't just park it in like an open lot. It's better safe than sorry when it comes to that.
Just don't. It is such a pain, and the biggest pain is finding parking. Not just paying for parking and all the things, but just finding parking. It is really, really tough. So what I recommend, if you're driving in, do the valet, have them park your car and leave it. And yes, the valet, $30 a day, $40 a day, something like that. Just pay it, leave it, and don't worry about it. Because what's cool is you can get around town relatively easily. If you like your Uber and Lyft and taxis and stuff like that, that's no.
You can also do pedicabs. Like pedicabs is probably the most like tried and true way to deal with New Orleans. And that just goes to show the infrastructure where sometimes it's easier for a biker to get to your stop, whatever, if it's a restaurant or whatever you're going. So getting in a pedicab is an easy way to do it. Walking half of it, getting a pedicab, or walking then Ubering. Uber's relatively cheap because all the trips are so quick. I mean, if you want to get from the CBD to the French Quarter, talking about like 5 minutes, maybe. Vice versa. So you're never going to be in an Uber or a pedicab for too long. So it is a very easily transversable city. There's no stretch where it's just like 15 minutes of driving. There's no just like interstate, to get from downtown to the outskirts of New Orleans. You're not taking the interstate. You're taking, regular roads, and everything's pretty quick.
Problem here, also they got the streetcars to take. That's one thing I've been doing. I come out of my hotel, walk down Canal Street, grab the streetcar there, $1.25. I'm down here at Jackson Square, no problem. So do that, use that around. Because taking the streetcar through the Garden District, yes, you'll see beautiful homes there as well. I mean, definitely go through the Garden District to see the homes there. But you can take the streetcar to do that and leave the car out of it. Because, man, driving in New Orleans will drive you crazy.
Yeah,
my next stone actually goes from that is when you do park your car, don't leave anything visible, okay?
Absolutely
New
not.
Orleans is not exactly the safest city in the world.
Yeah, the car thing, the new meta that a lot of people do is they leave their windows down. If they know it's not going to rain, they'll just leave the windows down with nothing in the car just so that no one busts their window. I mean, it happens. Like, again, it's part of the city. So I know a lot of people who put a sign up in their car that says nothing in here, whatever, or they'll just straight up leave their windows down and whatever happens, happens. But yeah, if you park your car, I mean, I would say you've got like a 40-ish% chance. If it's just on the side of the street, you're probably like a 40%, 30% chance of getting the windows busted in. It just happens, and it is a negative for sure. But if you know that could happen, and that's why I say just valet it. Valet it, get it into a safe space, get it into a garage, even like a paid garage. Like, it's not valet, just like one of the big triple-decker garage things. That's way safer than parking on the side of the street.
Okay, but I mean, it's not horrible, but you got to be careful. And even if you're going to be valet parking or leaving your car somewhere, that doesn't mean it's going to be safe. Make sure, one, it's locked, but nothing is visible. So take everything with you that you need, take it to your hotel, put it in there, or hide it, or put it away so people can't see it, because you don't want to give somebody a reason just to break the window and take your stuff. Don't leave anything out.
Same on your person. Like, if you're, New Orleans is so crowded and so in your face, like with buskers and just people who are, like, people are always coming up and talking to you, whether they're trying to scam you or just trying to, do a street performance or whatever. And they're, like Bourbon Street, you're always bumping into each other. There's so many bars, you're in and out of bars, your hands are in your pockets and stuff. So the less that you are carrying, the better. If you're carrying your phone on you, don't put it in your back pocket. Put it in your front pocket. Keep everything in your front pockets, wallets especially, because pickpocketers are here. And it's nothing when you're in a crowd, especially like a Mardi Gras or a festival. where if someone bumps into you, they can get right into your back pocket, pull your phone out, pull your wallet out, and next thing you know, you are cooked. So if you can travel light, like when me and my girlfriend go walk around, if she doesn't have to bring her purse, she does not. If I can carry some stuff, or if we can consolidate, fanny packs, even stuff like that, really comes into really helps here. Like if you're one of those people who you've got a wallet in your back pocket, a phone, a giant set of keys, another bag or something like that, it's prime for the taking. So be careful with your car for sure, but also what you actually have on your person. This is like an advanced level tip, but if you're going to carry cash, I wouldn't carry it in your wallet. Carry the cash separate. That way, if something does happen, you don't lose everything in one fell swoop. Or if you're going out and you don't need all your credit cards, take one. Like a lot of people have a wallet and it's like this thick and it's got 15 different credit cards, the Best Buy card, their whatever card, cash, there's driver's license, their work ID, whatever. You don't need all that stuff if you're in New Orleans for a vacation. So I would, take the one credit card you plan on using, your ID, and that's it. That way, like I said, if something does happen, whether it's a pickpocket or you leave it or who knows what, your whole life isn't gone.
That way, okay? And I guess that kind of leads into my don't be complacent when you do go out to New Orleans.
Yeah.
Look, there's a lot of people that come here, a lot of tourists, a lot of drinking, and so you will see. We saw a bunch of fights last night, people running around. You don't have a lot of pickpocketing in the U.S., but you do see some of that here, so you got to pay attention. Wallet in your front pocket, make sure you're paying attention. If you think, hey, I think those two guys are going to fight, believe me, they're going to, and the bouncers are going to throw their butts out, and if you're between the door and that fight, you might get caught up in it. So
be super aware. Be super aware. I've never had a problem in New Orleans. I've never had a problem living here. I've never had a moment that I haven't felt safe. But I'm also like hyper aware of what's going on. So if you're walking, on the sidewalk and you're walking and you see someone laid out on the sidewalk, you see a questionable character, just cross the street. Don't even engage, don't even get close, whatever. Same with if you're walking and somebody's following you, or if you feel like they're following you, or if you feel like, man, I just saw that person 2 blocks over, like they're kind of just walking behind me, stop in a well-lit area or a highly trafficked area, let the person go by you, even if they're not doing anything, just to be cognizant, be safe, be aware. And then the more you drink, obviously the same thing. The more you drink, it's just better to, don't push anything, don't try anything in New Orleans. It's very different than like a Nashville. It's very different than a Broadway, where Broadway is almost like a built city or like a built street. Like it's almost like a ride. It's almost like this is the street. This is what you're supposed to be doing. The whole city is kind of it's like a very efficient thing. New Orleans isn't like that. It's not like you can go on Bourbon and there's no efficiency to it. There's a million different bars and restaurants. There's no rhyme or reason for anything. You can slip off into an alley. You can slip off into a side street and find another bar. Then you can keep going, and all of a sudden you're like, where the hell am I? So it's kind of a choose your own adventure game. But to choose your own adventure, you have to be very cognizant of what's happening around you. You don't want to not have your wits about you here.
Don't be complacent when you're here. Another don't I have for you is when someone comes up to you and says, hey, I bet you I know where you got those shoes.
Yeah, there's a bunch of scams. Every scam, every person selling, even if it's not a scam, just people trying to sell their art or trying to sell face products or moisturizer or candles. Like there's so many boutiques and so many things. Just blow by them. Just walk by them. I know it seems not polite, but it's just what you got to do here. If you engage at all, you will almost certainly get got. And here, so the one he's talking about, that's kind of an old one. No one really does that anymore. But people used to walk up and they say, like, I know where you got those shoes, or I know where you got those jeans, or I bet I know this. It's all just a game to get you to talk. And they basically force you to bet them like $5 if they can guess. And then they kind of wordsmith their way. You end up paying them. But now, the one I see the most right now are these monks who walk around passing out beads or hats, and they give you a bead and they ask you to make a donation to whatever. Spoiler alert, the donation is to them. I've never seen monks in Hoka and Brooks tennis shoes. These guys are like paid actors So if someone is like, oh, we're a charitable organization, here, check this hat out for a $25 donation. You can get this hat. Just go buy them. The monk, same thing. Someone walks up with a bee. Don't even say no. Don't even say no thanks. None of that stuff. Someone says, oh, here's a perfume sample for you. Blow right by them. Do not engage. Do not look. Do not do any of that stuff. The second you get it, the second you start the conversation, you're done. And the Tudor girls on Bourbon Street, especially, there are girls who walk around with test tube trays, and they'll try and give you the shot first, and they'll give it to you very aggressively. Like they'll put the shot in their mouth and your mouth. They'll really go at it. And if you take it, they'll charge you $40 a shot, $60 a shot, and they are not with the bars. They're independent. They are mean as hell. They will. It's a very aggressive situation. I was on Bourbon Street with some friends 2 weekends ago, and we've been doing this forever, so we knew what was going on. But this girl walked up and tried to give my friend 2 of them. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tried to go right into it, and he knew to just get out of here, tell her to get out, and she cursed him out, talked him down. But that's what you got to do. So anything like that, do not engage. Do not ask questions. Do not do any of that.
Do not fall for that guy, okay? Because what he's going to tell you is, oh, I bet you $10 I can tell you where you got those shoes. You're like, oh, they'll never know. I got these in Lisbon, so they'll never know. Ha, ha, ha. Then the guy will go, you got those shoes on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, Louisiana. Give me $10. You're like, what? And then they'll harass you. Just say, hey, I'm a local man. I got them here in New Orleans. Yeah. Just say that and walk away.
Don't even say
all right?
that.
Because I've seen a number.
Don't even say that. Do not even say that. Just blow right past them. If someone says, hey, man, I know where you got those shoes, see you later. No, nothing. Just don't even look at him. Don't say anything. Like, why say, hey, man, I'm a local. I got those. He doesn't care. That guy doesn't care about your story. Keep it moving.
Number of tourists getting harassed by those guys. My buddy that's here with me, he got 3 people to ask him within like 3 blocks. It was hilarious because I'm just laughing, walking in front of him. He's like, what are they? I'm like, dude, just tell them you're local. Tell them you got your shoes in New Orleans. Just do that, okay? Don't let them get to you. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the video, I said New Orleans is a great place to visit most of the year. Well, our next don't is specifically dealing with those months you don't come here. And that is, don't come in July and August. Look, New Orleans is in a...
So... it gets hot. It's a different kind of heat. Like I said, I was born and raised in Biloxi, Mississippi, an hour away from New Orleans. The temperature is not that different, but the heat is. New Orleans gets really dangerously hot because, again, the infrastructure in the city is not great. So it's kind of it's almost like an oven. Like if you're in the city, there's no breeze, there's no nothing. You're just surrounded by this concrete. The city is also wet, so it becomes kind of a steamer, so it's muggy. You can't breathe. It gets dangerously hot in New Orleans. If you factor in the heat index and how it actually feels, he's right. July and August, I don't really do much in the city because you can't even go walk around. If you go walk around, I went to the cathedral in Jackson Square. I went to St. Louis Cathedral to go to mass. It was 9 in the morning. I walked from my apartment down there. It was a half-mile walk. I was wearing jeans and a polo, a short sleeve polo. When I got there at 9 in the morning, it was so hot. I was sweating so bad I couldn't even go into the church. I was sweating through my shirt, and I was just just having heat exhaustion. My parents, for Mother's Day, came into New Orleans a couple years ago, and I swear I think I had heat exhaustion. We were just walking around, and if you're hungover or dehydrated or you're not careful, even if you're used to that kind of climate, it can be brutal. And at the bare minimum, you more than likely are just going to be sweating all over the place. So if you're walking around you're sweating so bad, by the time you get into a restaurant or get into a bar, you're just a sweaty mess. So it is not fun to walk around in July or August. So if that doesn't sound like your cup of tea, I would definitely avoid those months.
Swamp, guys, okay? So what is it like at a swamp? It's hot, it's muggy and gross.
Yeah.
Well, guess what New Orleans is in July and August? It's hot and muggy and gross. Your sweat is sweating when you are here. So I do not recommend coming in July and August. It's just too hot and too miserable to be here.
I think it was last year, the heat index and all that got up to 130. We were getting notifications hey, if you're elderly, do not go outside. It's just You can't, like I said, you can't breathe. It's brutal.
Otherwise, you'll be fine. I mean, it's a great place to come the rest of the year. That's why there's tons of conferences and parties and festivals.
Oh, that's another thing. So pop inside to get out of the heat. A lot of the buildings here were built in 1800 or whatever. They don't have air conditioning. Sounds crazy. They don't even have doors. Most of the bars you go into, the door is like a plywood door or something. They just kind of put up bathrooms. A lot of the bathrooms don't have lights, much less air conditioning, much less a door. So to pop in somewhere, you can't escape the heat. Like a lot of the times you'll get down to the French Quarter, you'll be so hot, sweating all over the place, and you want to pop into an ice cold bar and get some AC. Most of them, I would say 70% of them don't have AC. Most of them are open, like they're open doors or open windows or whatever. So there is no getting out of the heat.
Festivals here, I mean, it's not just Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, French Quarter Festival. I've been to all of them, man. It is an awesome time.
French Quarter Fest and Jazz Fest are in April. So French Quarter Fest was a week ago when I'm filming this. Jazz Fest is next weekend. April is probably the best month to come to New Orleans. Now, again, the festivals make it a little different. Like if you come for French Quarter Fest, you will be doing French Quarter Fest. You can't like casually do New Orleans and not do French Quarter Fest. It's just part of the city. So if you don't want to do those, any other week in April is probably the best weather-wise. But yeah, July and August is brutal.
And the thing is just don't come in July and August, okay? I love New Orleans, but for you, me, don't. And if you do come, don't complain about the heat and the humidity in July and August because you came to the city in a swamp in July and August, okay? So I'm just gonna get that one out there for you. And the thing is, what's cool about New Orleans, you don't have to be concerned with being a tourist. This city is really geared for tourism. There's tons of tours, whether you want to go to the cemetery or go on a swamp tour or go to some of the plantations, a city walking tour, a garden district tour. There's so much tourism things here set up.
You're really not a tourist. Like that's the thing. I see locals and tourists doing the same stuff all the time. Like going to Jackson Square. I go to Jackson Square probably every weekend. You know, because if I go walk around my neighborhood, I'm in Jackson Square. I'm in these tourist areas. The bars on Bourbon or the bars in the French Quarter, those are just my neighborhood bars. Like, but those are tourist bars, right? Like, if you're a tourist, you're thinking, man, I really want to try the Carousel Bar in the Hotel Monteleone. I was at the Carousel Bar last weekend. It's just a cool spot to go. So there isn't really a distinction between tourist activities and local activities. So yeah, and the same thing with drinks. Like people talk about hurricanes and hand grenades and red beans and whatever, like gumbo. The locals do all that stuff just as much as the tourists. The locals, they'll get gumbo, they'll get hurricanes, they'll get hand grenades, they'll do all that stuff too. So even that isn't really a distinction. The only thing I would say might be very touristy are the tours, like the walking tours or whatever. I don't want to discourage you from going on the walking tours, but I think you can get much more out of the city if you just kind of be your own tour guide, explore, have an adventure. So that's the only thing that I would say is like really touristy are the like walking tours.
For you, that it's really great. Hotels, restaurants, bars, tours, all those things. And it's a fantastic thing. So it's okay to be a tourist. And they get millions of tourists a year coming here. So you can kick back.
Yeah, even like these things at the French Quarter or the Jackson Square, like the palm readers and that stuff. Like it seems like it's set up for tourists, but I know people who live in New Orleans who go and make a day out of like going to the French Quarter, having brunch, and then going and getting all their palms read. Like that sounds very touristy, but I know people who are born and raised here who make a like weekend out of it or have an event. I know people who just on a whim get their future told or whatever. Like that is very, very chill.
And be that tourist. You don't have to feel like, oh, how do I fit in when I'm here? Look, there's so many tourists here. Everybody fits in.
Just have fun.
So you can really relax when you come here. That's why people enjoy it. It's the laissez-faire attitude of the people in New Orleans of, hey, you be you, I'll be me. Let's have a good time. All right.
That's it. Like that really is it. You just kind of have fun. People don't worry about what people are wearing. Don't worry about what they're doing. Don't worry about what they're drinking. You'll see people wearing the most insane outfits on a regular Tuesday or a Wednesday. You'll see people on their fourth Bloody Mary at 8 a.m. You'll see it all. Like it feels like Mardi Gras is one time during the year, but it feels like Mardi Gras is all the time. Like the city is always wants a reason to party or have fun or dance or, the music's always happening. It has that vibe. So as long as you are with that vibe, you'll be fine.
Right? And leading off of that is don't screw over your tour guide when you do come here. What you need to know is there are some rules for the tour guides. You know, they can't let their tour groups block the sidewalk because they could get a fine. The tour guide, they can walk in the street, but the tour group can't, so stay on the sidewalk. Otherwise, they can get a fine. So do have a heads up for that one. And there's so much service industry here. A lot of people actually work on tips, so don't forget to tip. We actually have...
Everyone works on tips. Yeah, I mean, the service... Obviously, with it being a food-driven, bar-driven tourist city, the service industry is a huge part of it. So you definitely do want to be a good patron. Pay attention, you know, if bars and restaurants are closing, don't stick around after close. You know, if you get a drink and it's not what you want or you didn't like it, more than likely it's in like a plastic cup, throw it away. Like, you throw it away, don't drink it, suck it up and drink it. But like haggling with the bartenders, and you know, everything's so busy too. Like you'll go to a bar and it's like 50 people in a 5x5 shack looking thing, and you're trying to get served, they're trying to get served. So if you're taking up space and time with, oh, is this club soda? I wanted tonic water. Or, oh, this is Sprite, I wanted Sierra Mist. Like if that's that, I would not do that. That is going to get you could get like thrown out of bars. You can get refused service if you're doing stuff like that. So it kind of comes with the territory. Just kind of, I don't want to say take it, but just be a very good patron, and you know, the city will reciprocate. But if you're used to California or New York or however you know people act to waiters and waitresses and bartenders and all that there, that is not the case here. Like, that is not the case in New Orleans. And they will be aggressive. Like, they will be aggressive and tell you F you or get the hell out of the bar or whatever. So be the most easygoing patron possible, and tip.
Had a number of bartenders tell us that a lot of the tourists that come here to party and stuff like that, they don't tip at all. So make sure you are tipping, because the waiter and the waitress and the bartenders and stuff like that and the bands, they're making their money off of tips. So be generous with your tipping, because it makes a difference for them, okay?
Yeah,
and I know a lot of people come down, I'm drinking, no, they're never going to remember me.
I'd say minimum $1 a drink, and then if you're eating, I'd go minimum 20%. And you know, I mean, like, there's a lot of places too where you'll go in there and they'll have a live music or a live band or a burlesque show or something like that. Like, you know, even if you're not really watching the show or whatever, I would still throw a couple bucks their way. Just tip of the cap of you know, respect the arts, be a patron of the arts.
Remember, if you're at that bar, they will remember you if you tip, which means they'll come to you first before the other people, okay? So just a heads up on that one. Now, my next don't for you is don't screw with the cops and don't screw with their horses. Look, the police in New Orleans are super helpful, and they're also super professional. So if you have a question, you don't know where to go, or you're worried, just go talk to them. They'll be walking around the French Quarter, they're around town, you will see them. And don't be afraid to talk to them and ask them for help, but don't mess with them. If your buddy's getting into a fight or somebody picked on them and they're fighting, don't be like, hey, cop, that was my buddy, didn't start it. Cops.
Same with bouncers. Like, bouncers, you know, it's a serious job to police / bounce / whatever in the French Quarter. So there's no time to mess around. There's no time to joke and all that. That side of it, like, let that just be what it is. Like, don't try and be friends with the bouncers. Don't try and be buddy with the cops or whatever. Just, they're there for you. Let them do their job and enjoy yourself. But, you know, screwing around or stuff like that, you will get tossed out so fast in New Orleans. Like, bouncers and all that. Most of these bars have 5, 6, 7, 8 bouncers, like, around you at all times. They're watching. So if you're screwing around, if you're, you know, being a fool or whatever, like, you'll get tossed.
Don't care. They'll take your butt down too. All right. So don't mess with the cops and don't mess with their horses, because you'll regret it. Okay. So just
why
don't.
The hell would you want to mess with a
Now,
horse?
one of the things you might see the cops doing is helping people that may have had too much to drink. And one thing I've always seen every time I've come here, don't be surprised if you don't see somebody crying or puking or crying and puking when you are here. So don't get puked on. Look, I've got one more day here in New Orleans.
I really haven't. You know, now that I think about it, I really haven't seen a lot of people just like openly vomiting. I've seen a lot. I mean, obviously, like, you see a ton of vomit, urine, excrements on the street, especially like after New Year. I remember New Year Day, we went and walked to this little cafe, and it looked like I'm seeing out of a movie. There was vomit like on the walls everywhere. There was just pools of stuff. I mean, it was crazy. And so I always see it like that. I always see after the fact, like pools of it or leftover whatever, or crushed cups, But I've never seen. I can't think of a time I've seen someone just outright vomiting in front of me in the French Quarter.
And I have not got puked on yet. I'm okay. Last time I was here, Liam got me. Okay, but this it's one of the few times I've come here and no one's puked on me yet. So do watch out, because people do get really drunk at night here in the French Quarter. So do have a heads up with that. All right. So do be careful with that. Now my next stone for you is don't get in a hurry. Look, in Louisiana and the South in general, things go a little slower.
For sure. That's definitely the South. That's definitely, New Orleans and Louisiana. Like you do kind of got to chill. Like especially even at like a bar. Like I'll walk in. Last weekend I walked into Aaron Rose, a popular bar in the French Quarter, and it was packed. Like the bar was packed, and I was just trying to order to go drink and get on, but I had to sit there for a minute, let kind of everything settle, let everyone do their thing before they got to me. If you are in a hurry, if you're rushing, like I said with parking, if you're 10 minutes late to a lunch or a dinner and you can't find a parking spot and you're rushing around, and it's not the place to do that. Like it's not built for that. There's nothing quick. Like parking's not quick, lines aren't quick, service isn't quick, none of that stuff's quick. So you got to just kind of have that laissez-faire attitude. You got to just enjoy it for what it is and kind of go with the flow. If you're in a hurry, if you are, especially like a festival or something, this city is much more of a, hey, lay out your picnic blanket, sit on the blanket, enjoy the live music, get you a draft beer and take it easy. But if you're, on the ones and twos the whole time, you could get frustrated.
New Orleans is no different than that. You may think, oh, big city, hustle bustle. No. It's New Orleans. Take it easy.
There's
it's called
no
the Big Easy, remember? Just take it easy, relax. So service, getting your beer, things getting done, all these kind of things, just know it takes a little bit more time. That's why this streetcar is perfect. It slowly goes through town because that's how things work here. So don't get in a hurry. And getting upset and telling people to hurry up, actually I think makes them actually go slower. So
yeah, like Jackson Square is a good example too. Like this is a park, right? So you may be thinking like, oh, people will be moving around, taking a picture, then moving, taking a picture, moving. A lot of people show up here with their kids or family. They will lay a blanket out in the middle of the grass area and they'll just lay down. They'll just go to sleep. I see people all the time sleeping in Jackson Square or laying out or taking it easy. Same with City Park. You go to City Park, people are just doing whatever. Some people will be reading a book. Some will be having a picnic. Some will be. I was just at Wednesday at the Square down in Lafayette Square in the Central Business District. We brought a picnic blanket and some charcuterie type stuff, and we weren't worried about nothing, But other people, like other places, you may think like you have to be, standing in line, or you've got to be doing this certain thing at this certain hour, or if you're going to be at this area, you need to be doing these activities. That's not how it is here. I mean, you can really do whatever you want, whenever you want, and that is kind of the whole attitude.
Just be ready for it. Just take it easy here at the Big Easy, okay? And one of the things you're going to want to take slow is the eating. And so my next tip for you is don't come to New Orleans when you're on a diet. Look,
yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm a relatively healthy person. I do like to eat clean and all that stuff, but you do have to have a gray area with New Orleans. I mean, especially if you're going to eat out and drink and all that stuff, because it's kind of cliche, but it really is such a food and drink city. Like if you go to any restaurant, you are going to get some of the best food you've ever had. Everything's going to be super seasoned, super flavorful. It's going to be gravies and roux and sauces and dipping sauces and whatever else. And then every single meal is going to come with a drink. You go out to dinner, you're going to have a cocktail. You're going to have a beer. You go out for breakfast, you're going to have a Bloody Mary. You're going to have a mimosa. You're going to have a screwdriver. You want to have a coffee? How about an Irish coffee? It is hard to just eat chicken breast and vegetables here, unless you do it at your own place. If you do it at your apartment or house, but if you're visiting here, yeah, you just got to lean into it. You got to just eat the jambalaya, eat the fried, the fried fish, fried shrimp, seafood platters, enjoy the gumbo, enjoy the red beans, eat the bread pudding, eat the beignets. Like I said, have a drink with every meal. It is what it is. And lean into it. That's why you're in New Orleans. Same thing. I would say for drinking is very similar. Like pace yourself because you're probably going to be drinking almost nonstop if you are of legal age, of course, because you go to a breakfast place, it's going to be all you can drink Bloody Marys or mimosas. Most of the time, it's going to be a combo of the two. You go to lunch, good news. It's probably 2 for 1. Some places here are 3 for 1, which is absolutely insane. Like to think about going to a bar, wanting 1 drink and then handing you 3 at a time. It's hard to even hold 3 drinks at a time, much less drink 3 drinks at a time. So, and then, it's late night. Good news. We also have late night happy hour specials too. So you absolutely, and then you factor in that everywhere you're traveling, you're drinking. You know, like to-go drinks, you're walking around, you want to have a drink. It's super easy. It can get people. You can always tell who got by New Orleans. You can always tell who just wasn't used to it, wasn't prepared for it. So pace yourself, but just know that that's part of the culture here.
Food here is fantastic. Crawfish, etouffee. Yes, it's crawfish, not crayfish, not crawdads. It's crawfish, okay? Crawfish etouffee is fantastic. Jambalaya.
Yeah, I mean, like this right here is a good example where it's like, this is a perfect example where so many times I'll just go walk down the street to like a local, diner type situation, and I'll be like, hey, I just want a fried shrimp po' boy, and you get something like this, where it's like, holy God. I mean, look at this bread, look at the loaded, whatever kind of po' boy you get, the French fries, and then also it's going to be like 2 or 3 beers. Because what are you going to do? Like, you're not going to get a water, you're not going to get a sweet tea. So then it's like, man, I went for a quick lunch or a quick dinner. I ended up eating this giant po' boy, all these fries, and had 3 draft beers. Like all of a sudden, it just happens. Like that happens more than, and if this is nighttime, let's say this isn't a po' boy or a French fries. Let's say this is like, whatever, seafood pasta. You're going to have this seafood pasta dish, and then all of a sudden you're going to have like 2 martinis or a couple old fashions or a Sazerac or something. And it's sweet. It's fun. It's awesome. But you got to be ready for it.
Gumbo, oysters. Char-grilled oysters here. Oh my God, they're so good. Having beignets at Cafe Du Monde, something you don't forget to do. Yes, you have beignets are these little donut things, man, with powdered sugar all over them. Yes. The drinking. Yes, that adds calories too. The goldfish. There's so much fantastic food and drink to have here. Yes, go to Pat O'Brien's and have your hurricane, which is like this much rum and then whatever the coloring is. But you will pack on some pounds when you're here. So
for sure.
Don't come on a diet. Don't pretend you're on a diet. Just say, you know what? I'm going to New Orleans. The diet can start again on Monday. All right? And another donut I have for you is don't be scared to bring the kids. Look, the French...
Yeah, New Orleans is actually a pretty family-friendly city for it being so like Sodom and Gomorrah type of a situation. But it is a really family-friendly environment. I mean, it's even kind of like I see kids walking up and down Bourbon Street every day. Like right now, I guarantee you, if I took a walk down Bourbon, there'd be kids all over the place. Parents... Obviously, at nighttime, it's a little different, but yeah, Cafe Du Monde, Jackson Square, the Riverwalk, the park, City Park, Audubon Park. There's at City Park, there is like a children's museum. There's a carousel garden type thing with roller coasters and stuff for kids. Obviously, the zoo and the aquarium. And, at the end of the day, too, going to, like in Bourbon Street, like there's a Cafe Beignet area in Bourbon Street where there's a courtyard, there's live music, there's like a fountain, there's birds are always walking around, and then you can eat beignets. Like that's a very kid-friendly thing. Yeah, it is next to a strip club, but you can sit in the courtyard and enjoy some live music, eat some beignets, and it is a fun time. So for what New Orleans is, there is a very child friendly vibe to it, much more so than like the Strip in Las Vegas. Like if you're in Las Vegas, like there's a lot of stuff kids can't do, kids can't be a part of. But here, the whole family is definitely more than welcome in New Orleans. And you'll get a lot out of, I think, a family. I used to come here all the time when I was a kid. We used to make family trips from Biloxi to New Orleans, just day trips when we were kids or when I was a kid. And plenty for us to do. And yeah, I mean, it can be the wildest place in the world, but somehow it's also, I would say, kid-friendly.
Quarter at night, you don't bring your kids. But until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you can bring your kids to the French Quarter, no problem. And the rest of the city is very kid-friendly with the aquarium and the Audubon Zoo and the city park and all kinds of stuff and the cool architecture. And there's tours and stuff like that. Go into the Garden District. There's a children's museum here, all kinds of stuff. And a lot of people think, oh no, New Orleans is only for adults. No, it's not just for adults. They actually have a lot of really great kid stuff. And what shocks people when they come here at Mardi Gras, when you go to the parades, you see families there. Yes, New Orleans can be family friendly. Now, Bourbon Street after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to say no, it's not. But otherwise, don't forget to bring the kids when you come here. We had a great time with our kids when we came here last time. And I mean, I say, why not bring them? Now, another don't I have for you is if you're going to be here for a weekend and there's restaurants you want to go to, don't forget to make reservations for dinner because.
So, okay, caveat to this. So it depends on how many people you have. If you have like 4 or more, make reservations. If you have 1 or 2, like if you're here by yourself, or if you and your wife or you or your husband or whatever, girlfriend, whatever, boyfriend are here, you can probably always get a seat at the bar. I very rarely do I make reservations because usually it's either just me or me and my girlfriend, and we can pop in, sit at the bar, get served, get out. That is very easy. If you're with 4 or more and you want a table, like I said before, the infrastructure of these buildings aren't great. So if you're thinking of like a Chili's or a Ruby Tuesdays where it's these big sprawling eating areas, these dining areas, that's not the case. Most restaurants are going to have like 15 tables, like 10 tables. Like it's not going to be very many tables, and the tables are going to be relatively small. Like here, you don't see big booths, you don't see big rounded tables, things like that. So if you do have a big group, absolutely make reservations. But if you're in a small group, either 1 or 2, I would skip all that. I would skip the wait, and I would just go straight to the bar. I would say, can I sit at the bar? Can we get served at the bar? And 90% of the time, there's room at the bar. And almost every restaurant has a bar, and almost every restaurant, the service, the food, all that stuff at the bar is just as good, just as great of an experience sometimes it's even better because it's a little more old school. Like 2 places, Mr. B's Bistro and Napoleon House, both in the Quarter. Both of those are kind of like, it's almost an experience to go there. The kind of old school food, old school atmosphere, the white button-up shirt, black bow tie for the bartenders and the waiters and waitresses. And both of those places, I have sat at a table and the bar, and I like it more at the bar because you feel so much more of that like old school, like kind of what New Orleans really is. Like it's just something about sitting at a table is a lot more official. Like you're almost on like a clock because you're at this table, you have one, waiter or waitress. But at the bar, it's much more like you're at your own leisure, the bartender's at their own leisure, you're kind of enjoying yourself. So I would recommend the bars at almost every restaurant. Sidebar, no pun intended. If you are coming to New Orleans, the city kind of takes a while to get going. Like in the morning, if you're like your family and you leave your hotel at 9 a.m. and go walk around the French Quarter, nothing's really going to be open. You're going to see a bunch of closed businesses, and you're going to be seeing the city like maintenance crews, like sweeping, spraying, like pressure washing the streets. You're going to see a lot of trash cleanup. It takes a while for the city to wake up. It takes a little while for New Orleans. It's almost kind of eerie if you go take a walk. I love it. I love to get like a coffee and go take a nice long walk at like 8 a.m. because it's so quiet, and it's almost like you can feel something happened here. Like you can feel that, 5-6 hours previously there was this huge party and huge congregation of people, but it's like the city sleeps in. New Orleans does sleep in. I've even noticed since living here, I sleep in more. It takes me a little longer to get going. I don't know if that's just the way the city is, but so if you come here and you're like, we're getting a fast start, we're going to get into the city at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., not going to be much to do. I would say 11 a.m., 10 to 11 is when you want to rock and roll. Like, I don't think Jackson Square, which is what they're showing on the video right here, I don't think Jackson Square, the actual square, unlocks the doors until like 10 a.m. They don't, it might even be later, but even those areas are not really doing their thing until 10-ish to 11.
Because there's so many tourists that come here, you might wait in line for an hour or so to get into a restaurant. So there's ones you really want to get into, make that reservation before you come so it's set up. And if you're going to be coming at Mardi Gras time and stuff like that, or any of the festivals, definitely reserve a way in advance. Otherwise, you might be, don't get me wrong, eating a po' boy on the street's not bad, but you probably want to go in and have some char.
Yeah, so this says not every restaurant you want to go to will make reservations. Yeah, a lot of places are old school. A lot of places are, they don't do that. It's walk in, walk out. And most places, their reservations only like 20% of the restaurant. So a lot of the times you'll see like, oh man, this place says they have no reservations. But then if you actually go there, you get seated in like 5 minutes. So it's just such a hustle and bustle city when it comes to the food industry side of things, where, and by hustle and bustle, I mean like people walking in, walking out, coming off the streets, whatever, that they don't want to lock up the restaurant with reservations and then, people not show up or whatever. So reservations are kind of weird. Most places, they do take reservations, but it certainly is not the entire restaurant. You're better off like calling ahead. You're better off, like I said, depending on the group, just going.
Grilled oysters or something like that. So we're almost done. Don't worry. I know this is kind of a long don't list, but I want you guys to have a great time. My next don't for you is don't overdo it on your first night. Look, when you...
Oh, this is a tale as old as time right here. I can't tell you the amount of people that I see that come into the city and they go hard their first night and they can't do anything the next day. They are falling apart. That is typical here. Because like I said, people just aren't used to the combination of walking, the heat, drinking all day, all night, being overserved. Like you can't say that New Orleans doesn't overserve you when they simultaneously are giving you 3 for $1. Like you might be thinking, I'm gonna have a chill night. You order 2 drinks and all of a sudden you have 6 drinks. Like that's not a chill night. All of a sudden you've had 6 drinks in about 20 minutes. So yeah, it is the city can absolutely get you. Make sure you're drinking water, make sure you're hydrating, but yeah, it's tough.
Come here, you're going to want to party it up and eat it up, and you're going to get so full and it's so full that the next day it might be miserable. So the first day, take it a bit easier, or at least plan not to do anything the next day, your second day here, because I see a lot of people not enjoying this city because they're so hungover from their first night, okay? So do be careful on that.
Good news for the city is that it's a very hangover-friendly city. A lot of places, like I said, Bloody Marys and mimosas and screwdrivers, you guys got to get back at it.
And I guess my last don't I'm going to say is don't forget to bring cash and don't forget to have an ID with you. Look.
ID for sure, no doubt about it. Cash, a little bit. I wouldn't have much. A lot of places now, it's so easy to just do the scan, like the scan card thing, the thing. It's easier to do that than like pushing the card in. So I would err way more towards that than keeping cash on you, because the problem with cash here is that you're doing so many transactions because you're popping in and out of so many different bars that getting change, keeping up with change and all that stuff in your pockets, like it's so much easier. Just card. So have your ID, a credit card, but I wouldn't worry too much about cash.
If you look under 30, they probably will card you.
A lot of places, they do the scan for the ID, so it's regardless of your age. You walk into these bars, you got to give them your card to scan, especially on Bourbon Street. If you're under the age and you think you can fake ID your way through Bourbon Street, absolutely not. A lot of these places, a lot of the popular places, they are scanning cards. Like very few places on Bourbon Street just look at an ID. So regardless of your age, make sure to have your ID, and they will scan the hell out of it. So if you're underage, certainly I wouldn't push it.
When you're going to the bars, especially on Bourbon Street, so have your ID, have it ready. Also, you want to have cash around here, not just for tipping people, but for buying a beer here and there, getting your stuff. It's just easier to have cash. And again, remember, keep your wallet in your front pocket if you do have your cash, just for safety's sake, all right? So I hope this helped you know what not to do or don't do.
There you go. So that's kind of do's and don'ts. I was offering some do's and don'ts. Long video, but good video. If you do visit New Orleans, I hope this video helped you out. If you're planning on visiting and you have some questions, go down in the comments below. I'll answer them. I'll be down there checking it out. So there are the do's and don'ts of visiting New Orleans, visiting the city. It's a fantastic city. It's a different city. It's a unique city. No city's like it. It really isn't. I mean, I've had great times doing like big things like festivals and Mardi Gras, but I've had unbelievable days where I walk into Jackson Square, I get a mimosa or a beer or a Bloody Mary, and I sit on the sidewalk and I just listen to the live music. And those days can be just as nice. It feels like it's very Parisian. It feels like you're in Paris or something like that. So let me know what you think. Comments below, please. I'll be checking them out. Thank you very much. Enjoy New Orleans, and I will see you in the next video.